Hey, welcome back to Sasquatch Off-Road. Matt here, and I've got Andrew with me. We're going to cover two topics. I didn't realize it when I picked these two topics. One is the siege at 8 Canyon, and the other is the Albert Ostman story. They both happened in 1924. I didn't realize that when I picked these topics. I think that's very interesting that they both happened in the same year, but thousands of miles apart. One was in Mount St. Helens, and the other was in British Columbia. So we'll go over the siege at 8 Canyon first. So pretty much a quick synopsis of the siege at 8 Canyon is they went up to go mine. A group of miners, about 5, mining at the north end of 8 Canyon on Mount St. Helens. As they were hiking in to get ready to go build their cabin and everything like that, they had come across multiple tracks that they had measured to be about 19 inches long. And the two guys that are named, Fred Beck and Hank, they didn't give him Hank's last name or even if it's his real name. Hank did not like it. He felt very uncomfortable about the situation. But they found multiple tracks, and I think they measured the track. Well, obviously they'd have to measure them, but so found these tracks. They built their cabin, and one day as they were heading back to the cabin, Fred and Hank seen one of these creatures, these mountain devils. They were told that they were called mountain devils by a forest ranger. So they were told to watch out for him, and one of the gentlemen shot at him, and he was standing next to a tree, and they hit the tree, and bark had exploded onto the creature, and that's what started the problem and the siege at their cabin. Throughout the night, they were bombarded with rocks, the creatures climbing on the roof, trying to get into the cabin, trying to get the miners. At one point, they had reached through some holes in the wall from missing cheeking and grabbed an axe, and the miners were able to wrestle the axe away from the creatures. And shortly before dawn, they were able to head for their car and get out of there. And on the way to the car, again, don't know which one fired the shot. Fred or Hank fired the shot and hit one of these creatures that was standing on the edge of the canyon, and the creature had tumbled over the edge into the canyon. There is a lot more to the story, but that's the brief story, the gist of it, and the meat and potatoes of the story. And I had Andrew do some listening and research on his own before we talked about it, so we can see what he thought and what he could come up with it also.
I thought the story was pretty interesting. Number one, I think the name of the canyon is awesome. I don't know why I like it so much. I just do. And then the story itself, I was pretty fascinated by it because these guys are just going to do some mining, right? There's reports. They report seeing the creatures. They report. There was one I listened to that talked about interaction, but I think that was based on a different story. And if I remember right, the mountain devil name or whatever is a very Native American term for them. So there's basis of some Native American interaction with Sasquatch here. And it talks about, they talk about, the report of it talks about how they could throw their voices, and I want to say it said like 5 creatures, 6 creatures, or whatever. I can't remember how many. But that's how many they felt were attacking them, and they were throwing their voices all night, yelling and screaming, making the noises that we can't understand. Talking about not just rocks, like when I think of a rock that I can throw, it's a little bigger than palm size. I can give it a good toss. But they're talking about big rocks hitting that hitting their cabin they built. It was a pretty stout cabin, but not necessarily a well-built cabin based off the chinking, the stuff in between the logs falling out. And being able, one of the creatures being able to reach in and grab their axe and try and get the axe out. They were able to get the axe back eventually. I don't know. Didn't really explain how long it took to get the axe back, but I assume it was some hitting of the hand that reached in. But I thought the story was super interesting and super compelling, because I would think if they're building a fresh cabin somewhere, there's reports that these mountain devils were probably going into some of their territory that hasn't been really inhabited by, maybe by Native Americans. But Native Americans having some sort of relationship with them is different than good old white man coming in and ruining it. But I thought it was another interesting fact that I found is some teenagers or young adults or something reported that they are the ones that were giving the miners a hard time the night of the incident. That doesn't explain the footprints. That doesn't explain the earlier interactions. So, but that's what they reported, and then basically the newspapers gave up on the whole story because the youths said they had done it.
But also, so if the youths had done it, there would be a dead teenager down at the bottom of that canyon.
Right.
So, I mean, I haven't heard the youth story, but I would think if that was, I mean, there would be at least a reported missing.
Doesn't really
teenager.
add up. I couldn't necessarily find anything that people went up after them to figure out, look for tracks or anything. I don't think you found anything like that.
From what I've heard on the story is that the miners left out of there so quick, and it was a pretty harrowing night for them. They left out of there, they left all their gear, they left explosives, they left all their spoils from the mine, they left everything. And for a long time, people thought that the cabin had been lost. But I don't remember exactly when the story came out. I want to say it's probably in the 70s when Fred Beck finally started talking about the story. Maybe earlier.
I feel like it was earlier. We should look that up.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was earlier. The next story we're going to talk about, he waited like 30 years. We'll get into that.
So I was wrong on the time frame of when Fred Beck told his story. He told the story of the encounter almost immediately after it happened.
I will look that up and I will put it in there. I'll write it in there. Okay. 8 Canyon was heavily impacted. Okay, that's about the eruption. Sorry. So I will find it and I will put it in there when Fred Beck came out with it. But so the cabin was thought to be lost for a long time. The location has always been known, but the cabin did burn down in the 60s. It's believed around 1962 time frame. But it is located to the northeast corner of 8 Canyon. It can't be too far away from the canyon if they seen that creature, was able to shoot the creature into the canyon. So, and it's also not the same, not the first, or not the only incident that has happened at that canyon. There's another incident about a skier, but they don't know what happened to the skier. They don't know if he's seen anything. It's just interesting that these incidents happen at the same location. A skier was up skiing with his friends, had bought a camera, and had skied down so that way he can get action shots of his friends coming down. And that's the last he was ever seen. When he left his group, nobody had seen him again, they couldn't find him, and then when they followed his tracks, he had veered off course from where he was supposed to be. The tracks got erratic, and then they disappeared over the edge of the canyon. The canyon was searched, and nothing was found of the individual. And I find it very interesting about all the lore of Ape Canyon. And with those miners, that's not even the only thing that had happened to them. Was the attack. They had supernatural things happen to them prior, like a Native American spirit, or it was Lady in White. Lady in White telling them where to dig, how far to dig, and other weird things happening to them. I don't know if you heard that portion
I
of
did
it.
not hear that part. Or read that part. Right?
So there's lots of different stories that have come out with the Ape Canyon incident. Fred Beck has wrote a book about the whole ordeal of being on the mountain. So that's. You got any more to add on that one?
Well, I know that this story is a big basis for believers of proof. But and we'll cover this in the next story too, but I think it's kind of interesting to think about what would happen if they got aggressive. If you ever find one or two or whatever you find when you're out there, anybody, right? Are you ready for an aggressive one? Because it doesn't sound, in all the stories, it doesn't sound like a rifle's going to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a large animal.
I would think it'd be accept my fate and see what happens.
So the next story, these are two big stories in Sasquatch lore, Sasquatch history. Let's say that's Bigfoot history. So Albert Ostman went another miner. He had taken time off from his regular job to go mine at Toba Inlet in BC.
His regular job was he's a logger, so
Yeah.
he's in the woods all the time.
So he gets a canoe ride from a Native American, and the Native American is kind of giving him warnings about Sasquatch, they call it Green Man of the Woods, or was he calling it Sasquatch? If I remember right, I think he called him Sasquatch.
I don't remember.
And Albert had never heard of this term before or anything about the creature. So he had, I think, 80 pounds of gear in his pack. He had his rifle, a box of shells. So a box of shells is roughly 20 shells. And I believe it was just a 30-30. He had pancake mix, hardtack, canned food. I don't remember exactly what it was. Canned food.
He had some plums, I remember.
Yeah, plums.
There's videos out there of him telling this story. That's why we could be so specific on what he had.
Yeah. So he departs from this his ride. Tells him to meet. Well, the first night they camped together on the beach of where he dropped him off, and then he's like, "Okay, I'll be back here in 7 days, or I think it was 3 weeks actually. He's gonna be meet him back there in 3 weeks." The encounter with the Sasquatches lasted 6 days. So he hikes in. His first day, it was a pretty hard hike on him. He gets in, sets up camp. I think he found a decent area.
It sounded like he was in the base of a draw in the canyon or a valley or something. I can't remember, but it sounded like he was in a good spot for his looking for this unclaimed or unknown mine.
Yeah.
And he was looking for. So he wasn't far from it. It's
So
like a good base camp.
He sets up camp, and it's next to this rock wall. So he hangs his pack, and he jams a tree limb into the rock wall, so he can hang his stuff up. He sets up camp. This is where he's going to be camped for the next 3 weeks. So he goes to bed, wakes up the next morning, and his pack is dumped out. And
I think the first time it had just been gone through,
Oh, okay.
and some plums were gone.
Yep.
Because he had mentioned that he was missing some plugs.
He's missing his gloves. His back had been gone through something rubbish through things. So he kind of thought bear at first, but then the bear wouldn't have done the things that had happened. And then he was thinking about a porcupine. And he's kind of excited for being about a porcupine because he wanted to make porcupine stew. So then the next night, I think he put his boots in his bag with him because porcupines like to eat leather. So he wanted to make sure his boots were safe. And then the next day, his pack was dumped out. More plugs were gone, and I believe his pancake mix was gone.
Some of his pancake mix was gone.
And so I think he had, so the third night, he had slept with his rifle because he was going to catch whatever it was that was doing it.
Yeah, he intended on staying up all night and catching whatever was going through the stuff. But obviously he fell short.
Falls asleep, and next thing he knows, he's got this feeling of being picked up and hoisted on, like how he described it was being hoisted onto the back of a horse. And then after a little while, you could tell that he was draped over something's back like a knapsack. And he was in a sleeping bag, like curled up in a ball. The position he was in, he couldn't move, he couldn't get out, but whatever it was, the hand, he described the hand wasn't closed all the way over the sleeping bag, so he was able to get some fresh air. And it was, whatever it was, hiked for about 3 hours.
You can tell when it was going up and down ridges, and a couple times he hit the ground.
Yeah.
When he was going down, so he was going down, where he could feel his body moving up as it made the larger steps.
And whatever it was, you could tell that like it was, there's some parts that it was struggling where it kind of cough and like trying to catch its breath. And so you can tell like he gets set, it's still dark at this point. When he gets set down, he's in a like a bowl, like a valley, like a clearing. You can't really tell what's going on, but from the different voices, you can tell there's 4 different creatures, different sounds, and he kind of pinpoint where they are. And so the sun comes up, realizes there are 4 creatures, and in his mind, it's a mom, a dad, a daughter, and a son. They're all pretty wary of him and staying away. And so he just they were non-violent towards him. They just kind of let him do his own thing, like, except for letting him leave. Wouldn't let him leave. And so he was able to find a creek, set up a camp, and kind of dug in for the long haul, like he's going to be there for a little while.
I thought it was interesting too. He talked about the size of the animals, the creatures. If I remember right, the youths, he was talking about them. He was implying like 300 pounds. Big, but he could tell one was a female, one was a male. And then I don't remember how he described the big male, but I remember describing the big female as not built for beauty, but built for survival and thriving and being big, and 600 pounds estimated, and I think he said 7 feet.
Yeah. And when the male brought him back, he could tell that the adult female and the adult male were arguing, like she was not pleased with him being there. And he was confused on when he was there. And he said that his only thought on why the male brought him back was to possibly be a mate for the younger female. That was his guess. He had really no clue.
Typical man response.
But over these 6 days, he watched these creatures go about their daily activities, foraging, and there's some times where the adult male had gone and left and come back with food and other things. He had watched the youth male climb these hills, like climb the edge of these cliffs. And he said it was some of the most impressive things he'd seen. And he ended up, he tried to get away once, and the male wouldn't let him. The male stood in his way, and he was curious.
Big male.
The big male. He's curious on how he's going to get out. He knew that his rifle wasn't going to stop him, and eventually he was able to get out.
He had the thought at one point of shooting, but then he got worried if he just injured a man.
Oh, yeah. I've listened to the story multiple times. The first time I read the story, I think I was probably 10 years old. I read it in a book in the library, and then now, like...
And then you didn't sleep at night.
Yeah, it's true, I did. Excuse me. And then hearing the story multiple times, he sounded like he would make some dippers out of the cans and other sticks and stuff, and was like trying to kind of make friends with the young male. And he made a couple of these dippers. He gave one to the male, gave one to the young female, and then he had an idea about making. He ended up. Okay, sorry, let me backtrack. He had a lot of his gear with him. So he had his knapsack, or his pack, that had a lot of his food, like canned food. He didn't know what they were, what it was, but he had his snuff, his coffee, rifle.
He had some pancake mixes. He talks about building a fire one time and making himself some pancakes.
Oh, yeah.
And they were very interested in what he was doing.
Yep.
But they let him do it.
And so eventually, he was able to. He gave the snuff can to the young male, and the adult, the dad figure, father figure, took it from him and like wiped his fingers in there and wiped it clean and everything. And then eventually, he was able to convince the adult male to take a pinch. He was going to get him sick, you know, and finally get out of there. And the adult male took the whole can and emptied it into his mouth. And he said his eyes rolled into the back of his head and just let out a massive holler and was like putting his head between his legs and rolling around. And you could tell his mouth was on fire, and he'd come over and grab the coffee cup, the grounds and all, and just drank it all. And then he got really sick. And he's like, now's my time. So he grabbed, I think all he grabbed was his gun. I don't remember if he had any.
I don't know if he had time to grab all this stuff. I don't remember.
Yeah. So he grabbed his gun, took off running towards the opening of this valley. Excuse me if I sound weird, my nose is stuffed up. Allergies are getting the best of me. And so he takes off running. He can feel the adult female chasing after him. So he turned around really quick and shot around above her head, and she stopped, and he kept going. I think he got to this point where he could see Mount Baker, I believe. And so when I think it was Mount Baker. So when he found Mount Baker, he knew which way he had to go. And so he had started heading west towards the ocean. And so he knew he had to head that way. And I think it was about 3 days to get back to, he found a logging camp. And the first night back, he ate got a pheasant, and we ate it. It was almost raw, so he got pretty sick off of that. And was able to find this logging camp, was able to get back to society. And he didn't tell anybody his story or anything for a very long time. I think that came out in the 70s.
I think it was 30 years is what I heard. It was 30 years till he told the story. So he felt like he wouldn't be...
Oh, I guess that'd be the 50s. I can't count.
Yeah, that's true. Not enough fingers and toes. He figured about 30 years later it'd be safe to tell without too much ridicule. And I don't know at what point the shift was. There must have been more stories about Sasquatch that made him believe that. But what I thought was really interesting about his story is all the fine details, talking about the food. He talks about the way the animal is, or the creature is, the way his head is shaped. And it's that I don't even know the word, the scientific word for it now, for the brow going back,
Conical?
conical shape. That wasn't even a scientific term until after this event. He didn't use the word conical, obviously, but he talked about that shape. So I think it's pretty interesting. It wasn't a widely known term or shape of a head at the time.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people that try to call BS on the story because how he described the female. So, and it's like they think that it's because he described it as a how she wasn't built for beauty, but a nice brassiere would do her favors.
Right. A nice brassiere would do her favors. That cracked me up.
Like I mean, his attention to detail on that, and just his calm demeanor in the whole situation. Like, he knew he had to get out of there, but he kept calm, and he was able to make smart moves to save his own life. Like, if he didn't know if he was in danger, but he knew he wasn't allowed to leave. But his attention to detail and everything on the story, I will try to find a good story. I'm not the best storyteller, but I'll try to find one and link in the description or put it at the end of this video. I'll try and find both good descriptions, good stories of both of them, and put it at the end. But very interesting stories.
What I think is interesting about the last one, though, is one of the things interesting is there's really no way to prove him wrong, but I have no reason to doubt him on this one. Again, because of all the detail he had, and then also he was cross-examined by like lead detectives of the era and stuff, and they said they had no reason to disagree with him, right? And then no one could prove it. No one could go up there and look at his campsite. No one could go look for tracks. So that's a bummer part for the Sasquatch community. There's no one up there that can go prove his story because of how late he told it. But I don't see any reason to doubt him in this one.
I don't either. Like, the interesting thing to me, is that I don't know, like, the time of year. Both these stories happened in the same year. Two different experiences. One was aggressive, the other was
Semi-aggressive?
I'd say the fact that he took him was a kind of aggressive, but the fact that they didn't really harm him, they didn't show aggression towards him. I think that's very interesting. Two different, like, they got aggressive towards the end when he was wanting to leave, but I find that part very interesting. Like, to me, that shows that there's more cognitive thinking in there than besides just primal animal instincts.
And a lot of there's cognitive thinking supporting the study of what he was going to do. They watched him. They learned from him.
Yeah, he learned.
Not dumb.
They learned that the snuff that he's eating the snuff, or or drinking the coffee. That the coffee was something to drink. And it's just it's very interesting. I don't really have too much more to add.
Well, with it both being the same year, you get into a whole debate that neither Matt or I agree with, which is the whole interdimensional creature idea. So if you support that idea, then you could say, hey, this is the same creature, the same group, even, because it was a group of 5 or 6 at the other one, and we have a group of 4 here, so maybe they lost a couple, I don't know, right? But you can get into that argument.
Yeah. Well, this is why I don't think they're interdimensional, which it's all opinions. Nobody knows for sure because we still can't prove the fact that they actually exist. It's personal encounters and everything like that we have right now. I don't think they're interdimensional. I think that they are, I don't want to say a missing link, but they are more human than animal, if you will. they just know their surroundings. They can hide. I mean, it's like if you had an intruder in your house in the middle of the night, I wouldn't turn my light on because I know my house better than they do. So I'd leave my light off. So they know their house, they know their woods better than you do. They're there, they know how to hide. And then like one of our videos before, Andrew stood still 15 feet away from me, and I could barely find him in the camera. Couldn't really see him too well. So I think they're just a master of their environment. And the fact that, I mean, if you would to say they're interdimensional, I know why they're aggressive towards Fred Beck, because Fred Beck showed aggressive towards them first. But I would think that if they're interdimensional, they knew that Albert Ostman had a rifle, they knew what the rifle was going to do, when did they just automatically kill Albert Ostman instead of taking him hostage?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, but like, we weren't there, we don't know. We can speculate all we want. I don't know. Yeah, I think if you guys can leave comments and see what, we'll talk about it.
Curious to know your opinions on both the stories, whether they're true, whether they're fake, whether the whole thing's fake.
Yeah. And if you guys have any stories that you want covered, or any stories any encounters or stories that have happened to you or anybody that you know, and you want them told, or we can talk about it. You guys can email me at sasquatchoffroad@ymail.com, or you can message me on Facebook at Sasquatch Off-Road on Facebook. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, you guys go ahead and subscribe. Really appreciate it.
We also like reasons to go out in the mountains, so you should tell us where you had your experience. We'll check it out.
If you guys are in the northern Utah area, southern Idaho, you guys want your encounters story told, we can try to make it your location. We'll set up a time to come check it out, and we'll do some investigation in your area. You got anything else? Anything to add?
Nothing.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Remember, like, share, and subscribe.